You've been told that the solution to your loneliness is to fill your life with friends, hobbies, and social connections. But what about if loneliness and resolving your loneliness is a little closer to home? After working with thousands of people over the past 47 years, helping them develop deeper relationships with themselves and with one another, I've seen how easily we can lose touch with ourselves and how damaging that disconnection can be. In this talk, I want to show you how loneliness isn't about being alone or being with more people, and I want to show you how important being alone is for your well-being. Until you truly understand this, you'll keep trying to fill the emptiness with people, distractions, and noise, and never feel truly connected. But firstly, I'll explain a little more about loneliness. And when a person is lonely, it doesn't really matter whether they're with someone or alone physically, whether they're in a crowd or in a relationship or at home alone. The loneliness can be there regardless of being in the company of others or not. And the loneliness is a feeling that most of you will have experienced various times in your life. Most people experience it deep inside themselves all the time, but keeping themselves so preoccupied with interacting with other people and thinking about other people and thinking about the things that they want to think about in their day-to-day life, their work and so on, keeps you distracted from the deeper feeling of being isolated and disconnected and unable to really feel the satisfaction of being understood and appreciated by another person, and the satisfaction of feeling actually connected with another person other than just on a superficial day-to-day level. Of course, there's some fulfillment in the superficial day-to-day level, but that's only mechanical. Performing a task with someone else or even bringing up the kids with someone else. It's all mechanical tasks that don't require much more of you other than you to fulfill a role and the responsibilities of your day-to-day life. But you don't always have to feel, and you don't always do feel, that connected when doing these things. You're involved in what it is you think and speak and do in your day-to-day life, which is how other people end up seeing you and thinking you are. But in fact, what you think and say and do is not what you are. It's what you do. Your thoughts of what you learned to think and how you express yourself is a result of that thinking. But how often is what you think and say and express of yourself truly an expression of yourself? And how often is just how you've learned to present yourself under the influences and the demands and the desires of other people and the society or the job that you find yourself in? So how often are your thoughts, your words and your actions truly an expression of yourself? Very rarely, and they don't so much need to be. They're an expression of what you do. So people can relate to you for what you do and how you present yourself. And so often caught up in society from a very young age, we're trying to invent ourselves according to what we've been told or learned to believe people want us to be, and that if we could just be the way people want us to be, then people are going to like us, people are going to want to be around us, and we won't be lonely. But it doesn't work, because the person you invent of yourself, the person you pretend to be just to fit in, is not who you are. It's a very surface, very shallow, thought-based idea of yourself that you come up with and invent and present to others. And when other people see you for that and relate to that and like that, after a while it wears thin because what they're seeing you for is not really what you are, but what you've turned yourself into to please them, to get their attention, to get their approval. And when they're relating to that which you pretend to be, after a while, you feel in the background a type of loneliness, even a despair, that there's no real significant or deep connection. There's no human connection, only just a thought-based performance, like a role play, if you like. And when we're trying to interact on that level only, it's okay in day-to-day mechanical life, but when it comes to fulfilling relationships, it simply doesn't work. And we find that when people are relating to this idea of ourselves that we present, after a while we feel terribly isolated and disconnected because they're not even relating to us anymore. And we find ourselves forcing ourselves to keep up this pretense of being somebody we are not. This has been encouraged in societies for thousands of years. It's encouraged all the time to fit in, to create of yourself a type of falseness that works in your own surroundings. But it leaves the individual lonely. It leaves the person unfulfilled, and it causes an emptiness and an insignificance to come about in human relationships or deeper human relationships, to the point where even though we may be playing out the role of, say, a husband or wife or a close relationship together, that there's a type of disconnection going on between each other. And I hear it every day working with people, where people who live together, you say, how's your partner going today? And they don't really know. And they hardly ever know. It's a very common response. Because how often do you not have a clue how the other person in your life is really feeling or how they're really travelling? And why is this? Why is this happening between us? Why is this isolation there and this loneliness there, whether you're alone or with other people? Because when you're with other people or when you're alone, whether one or the other is your circumstance, if you're disconnected from the deeper and real sense of yourself and caught up in the ideas of yourself or the presentation of yourself, after a while, this disconnection creates such an emptiness that whether you're with yourself or with other people, you feel quite lonely and isolated. So what is loneliness? Where are you in yourself when you're lonely? You're quite disconnected from yourself. Generally, people think that loneliness is a desire to have other people around you or the attention of other people, to want to feel connected with and to other people. We generally think of loneliness as being related to myself and another person or myself and other people. It's not where it begins, and it's not the essence of it. Loneliness can, between you and another person, feeling lonely for another person, is actually beginning with a feeling of emptiness and isolation inside of yourself, a loneliness for yourself, in fact, that in losing touch with yourself, not knowing yourself for who you are and what you are, not understanding yourself, not really having a deeper sense of yourself in the body of you, you substitute that for ideas of yourself, thoughts about yourself. And those thoughts about yourself are what you've learned from others, so they're not even really about yourself. They're just about the society and what the society expects of you to be. Whereas yourself, as you really are, is quite authentic in itself. Whereas the idea of yourself is not authentic, it's something you learn from people around you. And when you're living like this in yourself, after a while, you start to feel quite disconnected. And once you're disconnected within yourself, you can't really connect with other people for very long. When there's a shallow sense of yourself, that is the basis for your relationships with other people and life around you. And so when there's a shallow sense of yourself, meaning just ideas of yourself that you're trying to live up to because you don't really have your own authentic understanding or experience of yourself or sense of yourself, and fitting in through ideas, you find that you feel disconnected and lonely. So loneliness is actually, you're lonely for yourself. And that's the primary state of loneliness. The secondary state of loneliness, of course, is that when you don't really have a sense of yourself, it's very difficult to know how to connect with other people. And you more put on a performance just to try and get their approval. Whereas when you have a sense of yourself, you don't do this. When you have a sense of yourself, that's quite authentic and quite unique. And you don't have to try and be that. You are that. So there's no effort in that. There's no performance in that. And when you have a sense of yourself, you also have a fulfillment in that. So you don't feel lonely for yourself. And even though you're alone, the aloneness is a fulfilling state, not an empty state. To be alone is a very important state or a very important way to be from time to time. The individual that you are, the individual that we all are, absolutely requires alone time. And what does it really mean to be alone is to be beyond the influence of others, beyond their influence of making us be a certain way, or making us feel as though we need to be another way, or just the influence of other people around you throwing you into being like them. Or being alone is where there is no thoughts of others at all. You're not thinking of others. You're not even thinking of yourself. It's deeper than thinking. Being alone with yourself, you need to go deeper than all the thoughts you've learnt about yourself, back into the physical sense of yourself, the feeling of you. Because it's only in the feeling of you that you connect with yourself. Only in the feeling of you do you get to experience yourself beyond all the influences of the world, the superficiality of the existence around you and of other people's influence. Then in that alone time, you re-establish your own more solid, authentic sense of self. You discover yourself again, over and over and over. And it's necessary to do this because there's so many influences coming at you all the time. And these influences draw you away from yourself into thoughts about those influences, how you should be, how you should look, what you need to do in order to get other people to approve of you and want to be around you. And yet, if you do that and you do manage to draw people to you, you're only drawing people to your performance. So it still doesn't last. It still doesn't work. It still doesn't leave you feeling anything but lonely and isolated. And whether you're alone or in a relationship, the problem is essentially the same. If you're alone, but disconnected from yourself, then you will feel lonely. Likewise, if you're in a relationship, but disconnected from yourself, you will still feel lonely. After a while, when you meet someone, the honeymoon period's over, the fun and the buzz of it's over, and the relationship starts to go deeper. and you find this becomes uncomfortable. You're not sure what to do anymore because you're only used to that shallow interaction of showing them the small parts of you that you approve of and that you think they'll approve of. But the parts of you that you don't really understand, that you don't really like, that you perhaps have either lost touch with or completely ignored, which are deeper within you and are the reason why you feel so isolated and alone. These parts are the same parts you feel disturbing you inside when you're on your own and lonely. When you're on your own and lonely, that loneliness has come about due to avoiding, denying, or ignoring things about yourself that you don't like the feel of or that you find disturbing or uncomfortable. But these parts of you, which are parts of you that are still you, by ignoring those or avoiding those discomforts or things about yourself that you've learnt not to like, by doing this, you surface into a type of disconnection from what you really are inside. And this can happen whether you're alone, but it also happens from that state, in that lonely state, when you go out looking for a relationship and you find yourself in a relationship trying to fulfill that need to feel connected. So when you're a lonely person and there's an emptiness inside yourself due to the fact that you've lost touch with yourself, that you're out of touch with yourself, that you don't know yourself, and you go into a relationship with someone to try and get that sense of fulfillment, of being approved of, and appreciated from them, it doesn't work. You go into a relationship, and what actually happens after the honeymoon period is over, after the buzz is over, is being in a relationship with another person puts you in touch with things and puts demands on you that put you in touch with things about yourself that you didn't like when you were lonely. Put you in touch with those aspects of yourself that you ignored when you were lonely. And the deeper and the longer the relationship goes on for, the more relationships put us in touch with and make us feel things and see things and know things about ourselves that we like, but also relationships put us in touch with things about ourselves that we don't like. And this is the true significance of a maturing relationship. You just think about this. It's two people come together out of being alone and disconnected. They come together looking for, I want you to fulfill something in me. And two people out of need come together into a relationship, both wanting to get something from one another because they feel a lacking in themselves. How is that going to work? That's going to be hard going. Yeah? And this is when people feel unfulfilled by the other person, because rather than finding their own authentic sense of themselves within themselves when they're alone, and having something of themselves to give of themselves and from themselves in a relationship, coming into a relationship lacking this, we're just looking for what we can get. We're just looking for what we feel we need. But we can't get that from anyone else. Your full sense of yourself is something that no one can give you. And you can't get that from anyone. So going into a relationship in that state, you're back to being lonely and isolated. Just this time, you're with someone and you're lonely and you're isolated. So just think of this. Two people coming together in that state, tough relationship. But what if two people had spent some time alone, not lonely, but alone with themselves, going deeper beneath the superficiality of ideas about themselves into what they really authentically are, discovering what it really feels like to be themselves. Now, whether they like that or not is not the problem. The problem is ignoring what you do and don't like about yourself and avoiding those things, creating that separation. And the solution is going deeper than all this into however it feels to be you in the body. Having alone time to really settle into being you, not trying to be something to fulfill the demands of people outside of you, ideas that you think, or ideas of yourself that you think they want of you, but simply discovering something deeper and more authentic in you, going deeper into the feeling and the sensation of you in the body. Feelings are for understanding and knowing you. Thinking, you never understand and know yourself through thinking. Feelings are for understanding and knowing other people. Thinking about other people, you won't know them that much. So, imagine two people coming together with a solid sense of themselves, with a fulfillment in themselves as a result of having time alone to go deeper into their body, into their felt living sense of themselves, to ignore the ideas they have of themselves and learn about themselves and society is imposing on themselves, and to actually find out what is it like to be me, regardless of my generation, regardless of what era I'm in. What is it like to be me? How can I find out what it's like to be me? I have to feel that. I have to get in touch with the feel of that. And the only place we feel is in our body. And in doing this, we start to awaken and integrate with a sense of ourselves that we then find we're able to express ourselves from quite naturally. And when we start to feel this sense of ourself, all loneliness disappears. A person who has their own sense and understanding of themselves doesn't feel lonely at all, ever. Whether they're alone or in a relationship, they don't feel lonely. Even in a relationship, such a person is completely alone within themselves, but fully available for the other person. So imagine two people coming together like that, coming into a relationship where they have their own sense of themselves and they're just sharing of that. Two people in that sort of maturity understand that you can't get fulfillment from another person. You have to find that from within yourself. You can interact and share and be fulfilled in the relationship with another person, but only from a sense of fulfillment that's already inside of you. And then when you come into the relationship, whatever that relationship brings up for you is an opportunity to process that and to develop through that experience. And this is where people, just wanting the relationship to make them feel good, become very confused about the real nature of intimate relationships, which is it will put you in touch with everything about yourself, whether you like it or not. And it's those things that you find uncomfortable that relationship is bringing up for you. That's an opportunity for you to understand, make contact with, and develop through aspects of yourself that otherwise you may not even notice exist. Okay, hopefully that was helpful in your understanding of being alone as opposed to being lonely. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you want to take your meditation and healing journey deeper, download my meditation app Undo, which is available exclusively on my website undoapp.com.
Okay, bye for now.